Lipids are a diverse set of organic compounds that are important to biological systems, with the roles of storing energy, structure of cell membrane, and chemical signaling. Lipids or fatty acids are also known to be soluble to organic compounds. These lipids are fatty compounds that can be found inside our bodies. The experiment was conducted to detect the lipids through the use of qualitative tests such as the solubility test, translucent test, test for unsaturation, acrolein test, saponification test, and the emulsification of fats. These tests aim to detect the presence of lipids and to differentiate the oils from fats based on the given qualitative tests.
Pre-lab question 3. Which can be an indication of emulsification? A. Formation of bubbles. B. Formation of precipitate. C. Formation of single phase. The answer is C. Formation of single phase. Emulsification is the process of mixing two immiscible phases with the help of an emulsifier according to Awad et al. 2012. Qualitative test for lipids. Procedure A. Solubility test. In test tube number 1, we poured in 1 ml of hexane. Test tube number 2, we poured in 1 ml of benzene. Test tube number 3, we poured in 1 ml of ethanol. Test tube number 4, we poured in 1 ml of butanol. Test tube number 5, we poured in 1 ml of diluted sodium hydroxide. Test tube number 6, we poured in 1 ml of water. For all the test tubes that was mentioned, we add a drop of oil and shake it well. After that, we observe for presence of layers or one phase of combined substances. Then, we record our observations. We repeated procedures for all lipid samples. Procedure B, translucent spot test. First, we folded the filter paper in 3 equal parts. Then, using a dropper, we drop an oil on one part of the filter paper. Next, using a dropper again, we drop an alcohol on the second part of the filter paper. Then, we drop an ether on the third part of the filter paper. After a few minutes, we recorded the drop made on the filter paper by holding it up to the light. We then repeat the procedures for all lipid samples.
For procedure C, we have the unsaturation test, also known as the Hubble's test. This test was performed to determine the degree of unsaturation on the lipid sample. The method goes as follows. The first step is the preparation of the 4 lipid samples on the test tube. 1 drop of olive oil in first test tube, 1 drop of coconut oil in second test tube, 1 drop of vegetable oil in the third test tube, and lastly, on the fourth test tube is a pinch of palmitic acid. Next, we added 1 ml of chloroform to each test tube and mix, followed by adding iodine solution in a dropwise manner to each test tube containing the samples until the color purple or pink persists in its reaction. For the procedure D, we have the acrolein test. The acrolein test confirms the presence of oils and fats in the sample by causing a pungent odor upon the testing. The procedure goes as follows. Putting 1 ml of the sample of coconut oil, vegetable oil, and olive oil on separate evaporating dishes. Then we added a few crystals of potassium hydrogen sulfate, followed by subtle warning on heat to mix initially. Then turn the heat up strongly to observe the development of the presence of pungent odor on the samples. The procedures are all repeated until performed to each sample. Procedure E, the saponification test. It determines the lipid's ability to hydrolyze, forming glycerol and soap. It goes as follows by putting the sample of lipids and then adding at least 2 ml of sodium hydroxide. Next, it was boiled in the water bath for at least 5 minutes. And lastly, ethanol was added. Then the reaction was observed for the appearance of froth. This procedure is repeated until all the samples have been tested. Procedure F, the emulsification test. It was also performed to determine the presence of lipids in water. It follows 2 steps. As the first step is to prepare 3 test tubes that contained 1 ml of water plus 1 drop of coconut oil. In test tube 2, 1 ml of water plus 1 drop of coconut oil plus 1 drop of sodium carbonate solution. In test tube 3, 1 ml of water plus 1 drop of coconut oil plus a pinch of soap. Next, it was shaken vigorously for 2 minutes on each test tube and the results are observed.
For our STS, we have at least 14 reagents for experiment 4 in lipids. These are chloroform, ethanol, butanol, iodine, sodium carbonate, diethyl ether, potassium hydrogen sulfate, benzene, hexane, sodium hydroxide, palmitic acid, coconut oil, olive oil, and vegetable oil.
Pre-lab question 1. Which of the following has a pungent odor? A. Alcohol, B. Acrolein, C. Chloroform. The answer would be B. Acrolein. According to Ernstgaard et al. 2017, acrolein has been described to have an acrid, pungent odor with sensory irritating effects. To explain further, when oil is being cooked for a very long time, the fat breaks down into acrolein, which gives off a smell of burnt fat. Pre-lab question 2. Which can be an indication of saponification? A. Formation of bubbles, B. Formation of precipitate, C. Formation of single phase. According to Helmstein 2018, saponification is the process of making soap. Therefore, the answer would be relating to soap, which means the answer would be A. Formation of bubbles. Pre-lab question 3. Which can be an indication of emulsification? A. Formation of bubbles, B. Formation of precipitate, C. Formation of single phase. The answer is C. Formation of single phase. Emulsification is the process of mixing two immiscible phases with the help of an emulsifier, according to Awad et al. 2012.
For the solubility tests of our datasheet, olive oil, coconut oil, and vegetable oil were all soluble in hexane. In the case of ethanol, it was insoluble in coconut oil and vegetable oil, while being partially soluble in olive oil. In the case of butanol, olive oil and coconut oil were both soluble, while vegetable oil was not. In the case of water, they were all insoluble, as is the case with diluted sodium hydroxide. From our observations in the translucent test, only oil was capable of making the paper translucent. For the test of unsaturation, palmitic acid was the most reactable, as it only took 6 drops for the color to change, followed by olive oil, which took 8, vegetable oil, which took 10, and coconut oil, which took 12. For the saponification test, vegetable oil had a soapy appearance, while coconut oil only showed a mixed substance, while the olive oil, nothing happened. For the emulsification test, coconut oil, when mixed with water, formed 2 layers. When coconut oil was mixed in sodium carbonate, it had a mixed appearance. And lastly, when coconut oil was added with a pinch of soap, 3 layers were formed: water, the coconut oil, and the bubbles. For the solubility test, we find that olive oil, vegetable oil, and coconut oil are all insoluble in both water and diluted sodium hydroxide, which proves that oils are nonpolar in nature. The results from the translucent test showed that lipids have an ability to make paper translucent, as they make the paper smoother as it fills the pores. The test for unsaturation showed that palmitic oil was the most reactive, followed by olive oil, then vegetable oil, and lastly, the coconut oil. The saponification test resulted in the vegetable oil forming bubbles, the coconut oil having a mixed substance, and the olive oil not reacting at all. Lastly, the emulsification test wherein we observe that coconut oil emulsifies with water, sodium carbonate, and soap.
In conclusion, most lipids appear to be insoluble in water and dilute with sodium hydroxide, but some are partially insoluble and completely soluble. When put in filter paper, it becomes translucent, another unique characteristic of lipids. And when it comes to chloroform, the lipids become saturated and with a change in color turning yellowish color to either purplish or reddish color.
Post-lab question number 1. Which of the following is not true? A. Oil is soluble in water. B. Oil is soluble in benzene. C. Oil is soluble in chloroform. The correct answer is A. Oil is soluble in water. According to Halstein 2019, polar substances dissolve in other polar substances while nonpolar mix well with nonpolar. In other words, like dissolves like. Oil is nonpolar and water is polar. Therefore, oil is not soluble in water. Post-lab question 2. Which of the following tests detects unsaturated fatty acids? A. Saponification test. B. Hubble's test. C. Acrolein test. B. Hubble's test is the correct answer. According to Rajput 2018, Hubble's test is used to detect the degree of unsaturation in oils or fats. Post-lab question 3. Which of the following yields a positive result in translucent spot test? A. Ethanol. B. Water. C. Oil. Correct answer would be C. Oil. According to Byju's 2023, light can pass through the spot on the paper where the fat is located, creating a translucent area, thus confirms the presence of fats or lipids in the tested